Detective Stone, let me address one of the jurors' questions. We're not sure which photograph they're talking about in their question, so let me put all three of them up with these open space officers. On this first, which is 13I3, can you say what the distance was between these officers and Mr. Boyd when they first pulled out their guns as they approached him?
When he first pulled out the knives, or this photograph right here?
This photograph right here. So then I'm going to go to the next one in a second.
I don't know. I don't know the distance with this photograph.
Okay. Do you know the height of Officer McDaniel, who's the officer who's in the front here?
I did obtain that information. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Okay. Is it between 5'5" and 6 foot?
I don't recall, quite honestly.
All right. We'll try to get that maybe from them. All right, how about this second one where they, from the taser cam, where they were up close to his camp, when he first pulled out the knives, how close were they to him? This is exhibit number 7C2, Your Honor.
As it relates to this still shot right here?
Or actually, let me take the still shot out and just ask you, when he first pulled out the knives, how close were the officers to him?
Within a couple feet.
Okay. And were they within arm's length of him?
Yes, because when you see in the video, Officer McDaniel actually goes to try and pat him down, and in order to do that, you have to make contact with the person.
All right. And so that's when he turned around?
Correct.
All right. And then let me ask the third picture here. Do you have any idea what the distance was after they backed away from him at this particular point? And this is 13I4, Your Honor.
Again, I don't know the exact distance based on this photograph.
Okay. In the course of your investigation, did you interview Defendant Keith Sandy?
Yes, I did.
When did you interview him?
I interviewed him on March 18th.
And how many days after the shooting was that?
2 days.
Okay. Why did you not interview him the night of the shooting?
He had retained counsel prior to me arriving on scene. So every citizen in the United States is afforded the opportunity to remain silent and receive counsel. Therefore, I can't force anyone to give me a statement. So that night, an agreed upon time between myself and his counsel was agreed upon to do the interview.
Okay, and that was set for 2 days later?
Yes, it was.
Okay, did you or anybody at APD place restrictions on Defendant Perez Defendant Sandy talking to Defendant Perez?
No, I didn't do any restrictions like that.
Okay, were there any restrictions placed on Defendant Sandy about talking to the other officers who'd been at the scene between the time of the shooting and the time of your interview?
As far as me giving those orders, no. There is a standard operating procedure that after a shooting does occur involving department personnel, that is the practice that all involved officers and witness officers will be separated and not allowed to talk to each other.
You mean at the scene itself?
That's correct.
Okay, but was there anything that prevented them from talking to each other between the time of the shooting and 2 days later when you interviewed Defendant Sandy?
Well, I wasn't in control of that, so no.
Okay. Was there anything or any instructions given to Defendant Sandy that he couldn't review the evidence or get the videotape and review the videotape before he gave his statement 2 days later?
Not by me.
Okay. Is there a benefit to letting an officer have a couple days to think about things before he gives a statement after a shooting?
Your Honor, objection of
Ms. Rowland?
concur.
The way it's stated, it's a statement.
Okay. Is there a problem taking a statement from someone in the emotion of the situation right at the time of the shooting?
Same objection, Your Honor. And vague.
Okay. You can answer, Detective.
As an investigator, I've gone through training as it relates to interview and interrogation, and this just doesn't always apply to police officers. It can apply to anybody. That sometimes after a traumatic event, people will not always recall things, or their thoughts will be very scattered. Now, unfortunately, in certain situations, I don't have the luxury of waiting, but in this incident, because an agreed upon time is to give the officer involved in the shooting time to rest, and then the thought process is when they come to give me a statement, they will have better recall of the incident, better facts of the incident to give to me for my case.
Okay. And when you did his statement on March 18th, he had every opportunity to tell you anything that he wanted to. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
And present with him, he was allowed to have a lawyer present and a support officer present as well. Is that right?
Yes, I didn't object to that.
Okay. And the same lawyer at that point was representing both of the defendants that you interviewed. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct at the time.
Leading, Your Honor.
Who was the lawyer that was representing both of the two defendants at that time?
Just so the record's clear, I need to give my ruling before you.
I'm sorry.
So it was the same.
Okay, and I was withdrawing it already. Okay, so who was the lawyer that represented both Defendant Perez and Defendant Sandy at the time Defendant Sandy gave his statement on March 18th?
Mr. Robles, I believe at the time.
Louis Robles, the same Louis Robles is in this courtroom?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And then, did you also take a second statement from Defendant Sandy?
Yes, I did.
When was that statement taken?
I want to say in April. I'd have to refer to my
Sure.
report.
Would it refresh your recollection if I showed you something that's related to the statement?
Yes.
Okay. Is your
Okay.
recollection refreshed?
Yes.
When did you take a second statement from Defendant Sandy?
April 7th of 2014.
And again, was he there with a lawyer and a support officer?
Yes.
And was he given every opportunity to tell you anything he wanted?
Yes.
Okay. What did he tell you about his desire to be on the rope team?
He had made mention that it was something that he always aspired to do when he came on to the police department, the Albuquerque Police Department.
And did he talk about whether the approval of his supervisors on the rope team was important to him?
I believe so.
What did he say about that?
I don't recall the exact wording.
Okay, would it refresh your recollection if I handed you
Can I see what you handed?
sure, transcript of the statement?
What page?
Page 18, line 14 through 23. Does that refresh your recollection about that, sir?
As far as your question about the supervisors?
Yes, sir. Was the approval of the supervisors important to him?
Just, Your Honor, let me approach.
them to respect him?
He said that he looked up to him and he idolized them.
Okay. Did he tell you that there'd been a problem in the first year of the rope team?
He talked about a particular incident.
Okay. And did he tell you that he'd made a big mistake at rope?
Object based on relevance. This whole line of inquiry now.
Okay.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes, sir. Did he tell you that he'd made a big mistake in his first year at the rope team?
He talked about a mistake during a vehicle block and that the vehicle they were trying to block got out of the block.
What does that mean? The person got away?
I believe so.
All right. And how did he describe that as far as the size of the mistake he had made?
It was a big mistake.
Did he use the word huge?
I'd have to refresh
All
my
right,
memory.
let me show you the transcript of this on page 23, council line 8 through 13.
Okay. Yes, he used the word huge.
And how did the rope team respond after he had made this huge mistake where somebody got away?
I don't exactly know the words he used, but they kind of roused him about it.
Okay, let me give this back to you and let me see if you can just read the words that he said to you. 23 lines 11 through 13. What did he say about that?
I'm just going to ask, does she not read from a document that is not in it?
Could you refresh your recollection on what he said about that?
Yes.
What did he say about that?
He said that he took a lot of beating up over it.
From the people on the rope team?
That's correct.
All right. How was Defendant Sandy called out to the scene?
He was initially called by control from dispatch, and to explain what that is when police officers talk on the radio to dispatch, they're communicating to dispatch personnel that are in a building on the west side of town. And each area command has a dispatcher that dispatches officers to radios and takes in information. And then there is a person that kind of oversees all the dispatchers, like a supervisor. We refer to that person as control. And whenever on-call detectives or say the SWAT team or the rope team or the gang unit needs to be called on telephone, it's the responsibility of control, the supervisor, to make that phone call.
All right. And what was the request of Defendant Sandy? What did they want from him?
They were looking for a taser shotgun.
All right. And was there a second call within minutes of the first call?
Yes.
And what did the second call to him say?
Control again stated that Sergeant Carpenter had asked Control to check with gangs to see if they had a taser shotgun.
And did the dispatcher say, "I'd made a mistake, it's not you that we want to come, it's this other group"? It's
Something
gang.
to that effect, yes.
All right. And when they said, "No, we've made a mistake, we don't want you to bring the taser shotgun, we want gangs to bring the taser shotgun," what did Defendant Sandy do or say?
He said because he was already en route that just to disregard.
Okay, so he told them that not to call gangs, that he would come.
Correct.
All right.
To that effect, yes.
Did he take more than a taser shotgun with him to the scene?
He took his gear with him, yes.
And did he take a rifle in addition to
Yes.
a taser shotgun? What happened when he arrived at the scene? Where did he go first?
He arrived in the area of Alexander Thixton's address, and that's on the road of Piedra Vista.
Down on the street?
On the street.
All right. And who did he run into down there on the street?
I don't know everyone he ran into that day, but he did run into Sergeant Christopher Ware.
Is that somebody he'd known from before?
Yes.
And did they have a conversation down there on the street?
Yes, they did.
In the second interview that you did with Defendant Sandy, did he come in and tell you what he thought he'd said to Sergeant Ware down there on the street?
Yeah, you want to ask the approach?
Yes.
I think we were talking about who he met on the street before, in the staging area before he went up, and
Yes.
and who was that person?
Sergeant Christopher Ware?
Okay, and was there a video that was created of their conversation there by Sergeant Ware's car?
Yes, there was a dashboard camera.
Okay. Was Defendant Sandy aware that the dashboard camera was recording their conversation?
Objection calls for speculation.
I think I can ask him based on the statement, Judge.
I'm sorry?
Let me rephrase the question if you'd like, Judge. Okay.
You can answer it if you know.
Okay. Did Defendant Sandy in his statement to you ever indicate that he was aware that this dashboard camera in the car that he was standing next to was recording?
Objection, did he ever ask him this better question? Does he even know? Your Honor, it's still calling for speculation.
You can answer, Detective.
I don't know.
Okay. He never told you that he was aware that he was being recorded when he was down there in the staging area?
No, he did not.
Okay. It is clear to you that when they were up and Sergeant Weimerskirch had his tape on, the officers were aware that they were recording what was going on with Mr. Boyd. Is that right?
All the officers are equipped with tasers, so yes. I mean, there's even some discussion that they're recording.
Okay, and tell the jury how this Coban tape in the car works.
Without getting technical, because obviously I have limited knowledge on the Coban system, but basically how it works is it's a dash cam video that shows video of the car as though you're looking outside the windshield. And then there's an audio device that is linked into the actual officer in the car. So say, for instance, the officer parks the car and walks away from the car, the video is still just video showing outside the car as it's parked. And say that officer walks away 50 feet, you're hearing what the officer says. So
Okay.
it's not audio in the car, it's audio on the officer.
All right, so in this, and did you retrieve this Coban video from Sergeant Ware of the New Mexico State Police?
Yes.
Okay. And when the jury hears it, and we're going to play it through Sergeant Ware, what will they see, and then what will they see on the video, first of all?
It will just be pictures of some houses on Piedra Vista, and I believe you can see some other police vehicles.
Okay. And have you reviewed State's Exhibit 12B, which is the excerpt of the Coban video that contains the comment and the conversation between Sergeant Ware and Defendant Sandy?
Is that the one with the transcript?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I have reviewed it.
And is the transcript accurate about what is said on the video?
Yes.
Okay, Your Honor, I would move 12B, but we would wait and play that with Sergeant Ware.
Any objections to all the videos? I don't think I have.
Okay, we'll get it to you, Judge. It's a clip, it's a CD clip, yes. Yes, Judge.
Any objections to 12B?
You wait on me here.
I'm sorry?
You're waiting on me on
Yeah.
their moving the admission of it. I think it's better move to Sergeant Ware.
I'm moving it now. I think that we have the foundation, Judge. We're just not going to play it until Sergeant Ware takes the stand.
So you're objecting?
Under this witness, yes, Your Honor. I don't object to it overall, but I object to it through this witness.
I agree, lack of foundation.
He's indicated because he was in fact there from
Okay.
the
Let me ask you, when you're doing a homicide investigation, how do you determine what somebody's intent is? On an intent to kill? What do you look for?
Well, I base it off of interviews taken from the people involved, and I also base that off of New Mexico State statute, which kind of outlines what the precursors are for, say, a crime of murder.
Okay, and I think you're asking, my question I think was probably bad. Does what the subject says, the person who is the shooter or the person that's accused of homicide, before the event come into play in trying to determine their intent?
It could.
Okay, and is it important evidence to you in trying to figure out someone's intent in a homicide investigation as to whether they say in advance of the event that they plan to hurt the person?
Yes.
Okay, why? How does that come into play?
Again, I need to find out if that was an actual credible threat or not.
Okay. Let me ask you about the CADs and what those are, and what Defendant Sandy knew about Mr. Boyd before he went up the hill to where Mr. Boyd was. What is a CAD, first of all?
A CAD is a computer-generated call within the Albuquerque Police Department. We refer to it as a CAD. And basically what it is when an officer is dispatched to a 911 call, which we refer to as a call for service. And that's basically if you call 911 and you need the assistance of an officer to your location, then an officer is dispatched to your location. And there's a couple different ways that can happen. The CAD can just be sent to your computer if it's a low priority call, which means it's not a violent call, and the officer will see it and respond. The other way is if a dispatcher will get a hold of that officer over the radio by call sign and actually tell that officer where to go. And in conjunction with that, at the same time as the dispatcher is telling the officer where to go, like Piedra Vista or the open space area, that will automatically pop up on the computer inside the squad car of the police officer, and it is telling the officer a whole lot of information. The CAD number, which is each police incident, 911 call, a traffic stop has its own unique number. That's how we keep track of all of the police activity. It will also tell you the time of the 911 call, the time that it was dispatched. It will also tell you the address. It'll tell you names of people who, like the name of the calling party. The dispatchers are trained to get the description of the calling person. So it'll give out clothing description, height, weight, eye color, race, and any other people that might be involved within whatever incident is happening. And the reason for this is if the dispatcher was just to give this over the radio, say there's 3 people involved, and gave all of the physical descriptions of the 3 people, sometimes as an officer is trying to negotiate through traffic, running lights and sirens, that may be lost in all of the stuff that's going on. So what the CAD does is it assists the officer to go back and say, okay, this is what the dispatcher put on there. So as the dispatcher is saying it over the radio, she's actually on a computer typing it in as well, so the officers can go back and refer to it.
Okay. So the 2 sources of information for officers who are coming to a scene are the radio. They can hear it over the radio. Is that right?
That's correct.
And the other one is on their computer screen in their car, they can see writing on the computer-aided dispatch or the CADs. Is that right?
That's correct. And it's also important to note that a CAD is like a running log. So you'll have timestamps of what the dispatcher or other officers may think is important. So what officers say over the radio will be put on the CAD. What the dispatchers put out will be put on the CAD. When someone's calling 911, whatever that 911 caller is saying will be typed out on the CAD. So they try to, the thought process is giving the officers as much information as possible when en route to the call and when on scene.
Okay, so when, once Mr. Sandy went up the hill, got out of his car, he no longer had access to the CADs, did he?
No, just what's coming over the radio.
All right, all he would be able to hear is the radio dispatches.
Correct.
All right. And what time did he arrive there at the scene? And you've got your summary if you need to look at it.
Yes, I'll refresh my memory.
Okay.
Okay.
What time did he arrive there?
17:56, so that would be 5:56 p.m.
All right. And so from that time until the shooting, he was up the hill and did not have access to the CADs themselves?
No.
Okay. You actually asked him in his statement what he knew before he went up the hill about Mr. Boyd. Is that right?
Yes.
And what he knew, in fact, during the entire encounter about Mr. Boyd. Is that right?
Correct.
And in that by the way, was his statement taken at the police station?
It was taken at the where my office back then when I was in homicide is located, which is the Family Advocacy Center.
Okay. So not a stressful environment?
It was a conference room.
Okay. And with his lawyer present and a fellow officer present, he was allowed to answer whatever he wanted to the question about what he knew about Mr. Boyd before Mr. Boyd was shot. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And what did, do you remember what he told you about Mr. Boyd, why Mr. Boyd, what he knew about Mr. Boyd before he shot?
I'd have to refer to the statement.
Let me refer you to page 5 of the statement, line 24 and 25, and I think it goes over on to the next page.
You want me to recollect both pages?
Yes, sir. Just the orange part.
Okay.
All right. What did he tell you he knew about Mr. Boyd?
I said that they had a history of running from police and resisting police and confrontation with police.
Okay. Did he, and then once he went up the mountain, he didn't have access to the CADs anymore, is that right?
No.
Now, defendant Perez was not at the scene until right before the shooting, is that right?
Correct.
How long before the shooting happened was he called or dispatched to the scene?
I'd have to refer to the CAD for the dispatch.
Please take a look.
Okay.
Go ahead.
It was at 19:01 hours, so that would have been 7:01 was the dispatch.
So 1 minute after 7, he was told to go to the scene,
Yes.
and then he arrived at about what time?
Somewhere after probably 7:15. I don't know for sure, but based on my investigation, that's the approximate time.
Okay. He would have come in a police car?
Whatever his issued vehicle for the SWAT team was, which at the time I know to be Tahoes.
Right. And would he have had access to the CADs, the computer-generated reports?
Yes.
Now, how do these come out on the screen? If there are 3 hours worth of reports, is it just the report of this incident, or is it everything that's going on in Albuquerque for the 3 hours before that?
No, when you pull up the specific call, that specific CAD and that CAD number, all you're going to see is the log for that particular incident. If you want to view something from another incident, say down the street or in another area command, you actually have to go search it, look for that number, and click on it.
Okay. Do you know whether or not Defendant Perez reviewed all of the CADs before in the 15 minutes or so, or before he went up the hill?
It stated that he had reviewed the CADs. As far as every single word, I don't know. I didn't ask that.
You don't know which of the CADs he reviewed before he went up the hill?
I don't know specifically which ones.
Okay. Can you tell me how, after Defendant Sandy got this phone call and then got called back and said, we don't want you, and he said, no, I'll go anyway. How, did he contact anybody else?
He contacted at that point in time the acting sergeant for the rope team, which was Rick Ingram.
And what did he tell Mr. Ingram?
He advised Mr. Ingram of the incident and requested that he accompany him to the scene.
All right. And did he tell Rick Ingram to call anybody else and bring anybody else to the scene?
The K-9 unit?
Okay. And did Rick Ingram follow up with the K-9 unit and bring the K-9 unit to the scene too?
K-9 was requested by, not only by, I believe, Sergeant Carpenter, but I think there was a conversation from Rick Ingram, from what I can recall.
Okay. And was there a conversation between Keith Sandy and K-9 as well?
I believe there was some discussion on their frequency.
Okay. And so Rick Ingram came because Keith Sandy asked him to come?
Yes.
And Keith Sandy also talked to K-9 about coming out to the scene as well, is that right?
Yes, but I believe K-9 was already en route.
Okay. So who arrived at the bottom of the hill there after Rick Ingram was called and K-9 was called?
Two K-9 officers, upon the request for K-9 came. It was K-9 officer Kenneth Ronzone and K-9 officer Scott Weimer-Scourge.
And did Rick Ingram, the sergeant, show up as well?
Yes, he did.
Okay. Let me hand you what's been marked as states 33A2, 34A, and 35A, and can you identify each of those for me? Let's start with 33A1, or excuse me, A2.
33A2 is a picture of then Acting Sergeant Rick Ingram.
And when was this picture taken?
This picture was taken inside the crime van after the incident had occurred.
That's the night of the shooting, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Your Honor, I move 33A2.
No objection.
No objection.
33A2 is the
And let me show you what's marked as states 34A. Who is that?
34A is a frontal picture in the crime van of K-9 officer Scott Weimer-Scourge.
Your Honor, I would move 34A into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
No objection.
34A is the
And 35A, who is that?
Excuse me. 35A is a frontal picture, also inside the crime van, of K-9 officer Kenneth Ronzone.
I'd move 35A into evidence.
No, Your Honor.
35A.
And did these folks meet at the bottom of the hill and have a discussion with Keith Sandy before they went up the hill?
Yes, there was discussion.
Okay. And so Keith Sandy arrived with this group of officers here? They arrived about the same time?
Approximately.
Okay. And 33A2 is the other rope officer, Ingram, is that correct?
That's right. Rick Ingram was the acting sergeant of the rope team on that particular day.
And 34A is Scott Weimer-Scourge, the first K-9 officer.
He's one of the ones that responded, that's correct.
And Ronzone is 35A is the second K-9 officer.
That's correct.
Okay, and was there a SWAT person that also kind of arrived with this group of officers?
Yes.
How did that happen?
Because of the way that the incident was evolving, the sergeant of the SWAT team had eventually been contacted and advised what was going on. So he started calling SWAT officers to see who could go en route immediately, and that's how some of the SWAT officers started arriving on scene.
Okay, and was there a one particular SWAT officer that arrived about this same time?
Yes, SWAT officer, I believe his name is Jeff McFarland.
Okay. Let me hand you what's been marked as 36A. Can you identify that as SWAT officer Scott McFarland?
36A is going to be Jeff McFarland.
Okay, sorry, I got the wrong name. And did he arrive approximately the same time as these other officers?
Approximately.
All right. Your Honor, I would move 36A.
No, Your Honor.
No objection.
36A.
And did Officer Weimer-Scourge bring a dog with him?
He brought his police service dog, yes.
named Rex?
I don't recall what the dog's name was.
Oh, that's bad. Okay. So let me hand you what's been marked as 34A. Or 34E, can you identify that as a police dog, Rex, that was Scott Weimer's dog?
Again, I don't know the name, but from the investigation, this is the police service dog that Scott Scourge had with him.
Okay, Your Honor, I would move state 34E.
Objection to 34E.
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
34E is
And did a K-9 officer on zone also have a police service dog with him?
Yes.
And I don't think we have a picture of him. So, while this team was getting in place, did some other SWAT officers arrive as well?
Yes.
Okay. What other SWAT officers arrived before the 3 SWAT team officers that came at the end?
It was, I believe, SWAT Officer Anthony Sedler.
Okay. And was there another SWAT officer who was acting as a sniper that showed up?
Yes, at one point, the Jim Purdue.
Okay, let me hand you what's been marked as states 38A, and can you identify that?
38A is a frontal picture in the crime van of SWAT Officer Anthony Sedler.
And 39A1?
Is a frontal picture in the crime van of SWAT Officer Jim Purdue.
Your Honor, I would move 38A and 39A1.
No objection.
No objection.
38A and 39A are admitted.
Let me get this tape, Judge, just a second. When the 3 officers first arrived, that is Sandy, Ingram, Weimer-Scourge, did they talk together and make a decision about whether or not they should call down the field officers?
Objection to the form of question, it seems facts out of evidence that they made the decision, Your Honor, as opposed to one individual.
When discussing with you, in his statement, did Defendant Sandy talk about whether they or we had made a decision, or whether a particular individual made a decision?
I'd have to refer to the statement.
Okay. Let me give you the statement, but I think we also have the clip, which is, I think, clip 14A1, clip 3. Did you actually record the conversation?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And, Your Honor, I would play at this point the admission of Officer Sandy, which is at 14A1, clip 3.
Objection, that's not the context of the whole statement. That's discussion. What page of the transcript are you referring to?
I think this is a clip that we gave you several weeks ago.
No, what page of the transcript?
Let me find it.
Sorry, Your Honor, we're looking for what page of the transcript the clip is from.
And the transcript that I believe that you're referring to is 14.2.
I don't know, that's really, I think that's what we're referring to.
Let me find my second statement, Judge. Do you have the Sandy statement up there, the other Sandy statement up there? Yes? Yes.
Oh.
Okay, that's the one. Okay. It's line, page 23, lines 8 through 13. Hold on a second, I think that's wrong. Hold on a second, guys. That's the wrong one. It is page 16, lines 9 through 11.
I just can't imagine that that's correct.
Hold on a second, let me check.
Can we give the jury a quick stretch, please?
That would be great,
Stand
Judge,
and-
thanks. Okay, there you go. It's page 9, lines 5 through 14. Got it. Okay.
We'll take a 5-minute recess.
Okay, Judge.